This is Moments with Fu with James Fu Torres, better known as Fu, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and relevant people on the planet, hear their stories, and get the most important business lessons they have learned on their road to success, and get exclusive advice on how to implement their success into your life and business. Moments with Fu is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board and your host, Fu.
Hello and welcome to Moments with Fu. I'm your host, James Fu Torres, but you can call me Fu. It's the name of the podcast. And today I have Mary Cheyne. And hopefully I didn't butcher that name that much, but she's a transformational communications trainer and coach. And I'm going to let her tell you more about that. But first, Mary, how are you?
I'm fantastic, and thank you for having me. I have a little cold, so the stuffy nose is the reason. That's the reason.
That's fine. You sound good. So don't worry about it. And let's kick it off with a quick introduction about yourself and your company.
Sure. So what I do, I'm a transformational communications trainer and coach, and what I love doing is helping people get concise about what it is that they stand for. That needs to happen first. And then we construct it in a way that they can communicate it in a concise way that really highlights what they do in their unique way, so that the people that are listening to them can really get a sense of not only what they do and how they can be helping them, but also the essence of who they are comes through, so that people are aware, oh wow, this person stands for a certain thing that's a unique gift, and really we are wanting to unwrap these gifts for people, right? It's just like the way I explain it is everybody has a unique gift, and if we can leverage that in service of others through the heart, because I'm a huge thing about the heart, so if you can really come from the heart exactly and serve others using your gifts, I believe this is what I'm put on this earth to do, okay, to help others do that. So if, for example, even before we pressed record, you were starting to tell me a little bit about your story, and I was at the edge of my seat. Tell me more, because I just want to know about the person. And I think especially, I know a lot of your listeners are business leaders, right? So I work with a lot of business leaders myself. And one of the things that people tend to do is underestimate the power of their own story. And I say, no, leverage it, because it's all about, there's so much we can go into, and we probably will during this episode, but really it's about being able to share your story so that it connects with the audience. It connects the people that are listening to you. And I've helped so many of my clients do that, who's come back and said, oh my God, now I have these clients who not only have the clients, right? That's number one, but the clients that I love to work with. And why is that? Well, because the clients that resonate with your story and connect with your story the most are the ones that are going to step forward and say, yeah, you resonate with me, so I want to work with you. And so you end up with not only quote unquote clients, but your ideal clients that you love, the ones that that you can't wait to work with. And that's really, I feel my unique gift is to be able to mine the wisdom out of your story and help you construct it in such a way that you can share it, so that it becomes the gift that keeps on giving, because you've lived it. It's your story, you own it. And so, I want you to be able to tell it loud and proud.
I love it. And I completely resonate with that, because majority of my clients that have decided to work with me has been because they resonate with my story. It's a more heart-centered approach than anything else, because I mean I don't I now, like, coming close to like 3 years and stuff, it's getting closer to have more experience. But before, I mean, all the clients that I managed to get is like, look, I don't have that much experience. I do have training, I do have professionals that either contractors or working on my team that are have a lot of experience. But me myself, like, I'm starting out. I'm eager to work, like, and I know that I can deliver this specific things for you, right? So that is how it has worked for me. And so that's why I resonate a lot with what you say. And I want to dig into one of the topics of your TEDx talk that I really loved, right? We were talking about it.
Thank you.
Of offline, which is the intuition, right? And this is something, this part I typically ask for advice or actionable tips for business leaders. So I would like for you to give some advice regarding the intuition. So what's your advice?
I love that. There was a reason why the TEDx talk that I did that you're speaking of is called The Hidden Power of Bruce Lee That We All Have. Okay. And one of the reasons I decided to speak on this topic, because it was true of my own journey. Okay. So I will talk about the actionable tips in just a second, but really I wanted to share a little bit about why that topic I felt was so important, because I mean the TEDx platform is all about an idea worth spreading, right? So I felt this was an important idea because I say this to my clients all the time. I just ran my 2-day boot camp, which I run. It's a 2-day public speaking boot camp, which for business leaders to go into both the internal essence of who you are, as well as the mechanics of how to put together your story. And what I found is through my own business journey of how I started, for example, by the way, FYI, in case those of you are listening, just audio, I look like I have an Asian face. Okay. I have an Asian face and I sound like an Australian. And the reason this is because I was born in Hong Kong and I grew up until about 7 years old, and my family migrated to Sydney, Australia, where I grew up. Okay. And so I did all of my schooling, college there. And then as a grown up, I moved to the United States, right? This is one of the first things that I say when I'm on stage and I'm sharing my story for the first time. People don't expect this voice necessarily to come out of this face. So immediately I share that and they have a good little giggle. Okay. So that's number one. But I share this with you now because I grew up in a very traditional Chinese family. All right. So even though I grew up in Australia, my family, my mother, for example, never spoke good English. She had broken English. My dad spoke English, but very basic with a thick accent. Right. And their values that they grew up with were very traditional, very old school in many ways. And therefore, the way they passed down their teachings and values to me was very what I would call head centric. Okay. So study well in school, Mary. I'll never forget. I drew this picture once when I was about 7 or 8 years old, and it was for Father's Day. And I sat there the whole afternoon, and it was this beautiful lion, right? I spent all this time on it. It was beautiful, and couldn't wait to give it to my dad. And my dad comes home, and I go, Dad, I drew you a picture. And his reaction was, art is no good. It makes you no money. Okay. You study computers. Okay. That was his advice. Okay. I tell this story and it's a true story. Okay. Just to give you an illustration of the background that I came from. So therefore, as a good little kid who, wanted to please her parents and wanted to get good grades, that's what I did. In fact, my undergrad was computing science, okay, which I enjoyed. I think computers was fine and I enjoyed it and I was relatively okay at it, right? But years down the line as a computer programmer, which is what I started off as, I discovered more and more that it wasn't fulfilling something in me that I didn't realize wanted to be fulfilled. Okay. And what is that? I just wanted to help people. I'm like, okay, so, this computer program, I know ultimately, the end user is using it and it's probably going to help them in some way, but it wasn't the kind of help that I felt I was put on this earth to do. Okay. It wasn't satisfying my heart. Okay. So that's when I started to really listen to what my internal voice was saying. And this connects all back to the intuition. And so I always say to people, it's what help my clients do, for example, is really get in tune with what I call discernment. Okay. The discernment, I call it the internal GPS. Okay. The internal or the inner GPS, and I have a coined phrase for it. So to me, the internal GPS, it stands for genuine path signal. Okay. I made this up okay? Because I wanted something repeatable. So, one of the tips is what's repeatable is memorable. Okay. What's repeatable is memorable. So the internal GPS is where we all need to start. And I always say to my students, whether it's in the public speaking boot camp or my clients or my CEO clients or my executive clients, whoever they are, individual or group, I always say, never, ever believe a word I say. Just like your audience right now who's listening to you, right? Listening to this podcast. Don't believe, I do not want you to believe what I'm saying. None of it. Okay. What I want you to do is I want you to pay attention to your internal system, your body. What is it resonating with you? When something resonates with you, there's something that gets lit up. I call this the truth bell, right? The truth bell goes ding, and you're like, oh, that sounds amazing. Yes, that resonates with me. So pay attention to that. That's what I call your heart voice or your intuition. And then it takes about 2 to 5 seconds before your head voice jumps in. So there's a little bit of a gap, okay? The heart voice or your intuition is very simple. It's either a yay or a nay, okay? It's subtle. Sometimes it's loud, but sometimes it's subtle, right? Paying attention to that. And then the gap between that initial impulse and then the head voice which jumps in, which is an analysis, what I call analysis, but then when you overthink, it becomes analysis paralysis, and then you don't necessarily take the action that's in the direction of what your heart wants, what your intuition wants. Okay. And I feel personally, based on all the work that I've done and my own internal journey, that is the biggest piece of skill. And it is a skill that's trainable and that can be achieved over time if you really put the intention and training and energy behind practicing this. Then it becomes moment to moment decisions made from your intuition. Your head, your intellectual head. A lot of the people I work with are very intelligent. They have PhDs and they've done this, that, and the other. They've got all these achievements. They're high achievers. So they're very intelligent. But what I'm saying here is we want to allow our heart and intuition to lead the actions. So the head is then, the intellect is then moving in this world in service of the heart versus the other way around, which is what I was doing coming out of college, right? Does that answer your question?
I like the heart voice, and then the brain or head voice that you
Head
called
voice
it,
and heart voice. Yeah.
right? And the head, because it's something that I believe in, and it's something that it's not very easy to just kind of understand unless you're kind of guided, right? Because for me, I personal experience, right? Maybe other people might feel different about this, but for me, it hasn't been something that it wasn't taught to me, especially not growing up, and maybe I wasn't just surrounding myself with the right people about this, specific topic. So this not it's something that is very new to me, and it's something that I got more into as I came into the entrepreneurship. And it wasn't, and in the beginning, it was like, I just need to figure out what's the one, two things that I can deliver and just sell, and that's it, right? That's my only thing in mind. And I think because of being so centered on, so focused on only like, I just want to like have skills and have services that I can sell that are valuable to the market, and then just sell them, and then just keep doing that and build a business, not get stuck on the fulfillment and stuff. So given that I just kind of was so focused on that, I did not develop as much the compass for things like this, right? Like that heart compass or my head compass, right? Or that, like, how to understand my head voice and my heart voice. All those things were something that I started getting like within like coaching, like the mindset, and then even like meeting people like you, and seeing content like the content that you put out, like in like that TEDx was very eye-opening for me, because it's something that I've been looking for. It's like it's I love like the woo side of things, right? Like the unexplained, and going into that heart more than everything that is just purely logical, science-based and everything, which I'm very scientific, mathematical person, because that's why I was studying engineering. That's one of my best things in school. But I also believe that there's a lot of things that we just can just completely understand, because our human limitations of in this body, in this biology that we have, it's like there's so much that our eyes cannot see, our ears cannot hear. So there's such a big spectrum proven by science that we are just this like little part of the spectrum we can see and hear. And so there's all these things happening that we don't really detect. So I I I use that to be like, okay, so the intuition for me is it's something that is a mix between like my higher self or energy or a higher power, and also uh, those things that I'm not hearing, and I'm not like smelling, like, my senses don't really pick it up the way that it picks up everything, but my mind and my heart somehow are picking up something, right? So and it's so hard to just conceptualize unless you're guided to really put it into perspective in a way that you can really understand it, or at least have faith in it, right? Because sometimes you can have faith in something without truly understanding it but believing in it, right? So that is like where I been and what I'm at still, like, and that's why I was really looking forward for this conversation with you, and to many more, because I know we're gonna have many more, uh so because about that, because I want to really learn how to trust my intuition, because like I said, when we were off air, and I said this even in the podcast, uh, I I if I would have trusted my intuition, I wouldn't hire certain people that I knew that there was something was off, but I wasn't feeling like that thing that was off, it like it could be fine. Like I still was gonna be able to get the results, and I ignore that
Mhm.
thinking like, oh, it's fine. Like I need this. And that goes back to the thing that I was saying. Like I was so focused on I just need to have something that is an irresistible offer with a guarantee and all this, like, the best offer possible, like, because listening from Alex Hormozy and all these things, and it's like, what is my differentiator, what is the thing, like, just selling a press release here and there is not gonna cut it, like I need something. And then I started just whoever offers me that and it makes sense, and I look them up a little bit, and that even if everything doesn't check out, it's more like I just check a couple boxes and we bonded on some things, then, oh, let's do it. And then, because even though we clicked, I felt like we clicked on certain things, I knew something was off, and if I would have trusted my intuition, I wouldn't gotten there. So that's the thing.
Yeah.
And on when it, like, we talk about the story, but then on actionable, like, tips, like what is something that you can give me and the audience to be like, uh this will help you understand or listen better to your intuition? What would you say
Yeah,
to
yeah.
that?
Yeah, and I'll share that in a second. I do want to comment on what you just said as well. I feel like that would be helpful. So, first of all, I think we can all relate to what you just shared about the what I call contrasting experiences. Okay. So, the what I'll commentate on that is me too, right? I've had so many experiences like that where I'm like, in hindsight, hindsight's 2020 vision, right? So you had mentioned a whole bunch of stuff in there. So for example, you said the science thing and the woo woo thing, and the way I would context that is being open-minded. Okay, so for example, earlier we spoke about ideal clients. Okay, so my ideal clients are the best students. Okay, they are coachable, they're open-minded, and they're willing to learn. I think this is one of the things that one of the biggest obstacles that trips people up in their head voice versus their heart voice is there's this expectation of themselves that they ought to know X, Y, and Z, right, in order to process. So if you don't, for example, if you don't have what what is your biggest vision, what is your ideal, what is it that you want to do, what is it that you want to already have achieved and done for yourself, and if you don't have that, most likely, let's call that point B. Okay, so point A is where you're at now. So there's a path between point A and point B. Okay, if you're not at point B and you're at point A, most likely there's either something you don't know, skills you don't currently have, a mindset you haven't broken through, a paradigm shift in the way you think, and usually a combination of all four. Okay, that's currently not there yet, and therefore that's why you don't have B, right? So isn't it great the way I context even my own business, especially with all the entrepreneurs that I work with? is to context it. Again, don't believe a word I say. It just, this works for me and all of my clients, is to perceive your journey. By the way, whether you're an entrepreneur or even if you're an employee of a company, perceive your own journey as a vehicle for your own evolution. Okay. If you approach it in that way, then, or like you mentioned my TEDx talk, right? In the TEDx talk, I talk about self-inquiry, right? Bruce Lee's all about self-inquiry. And if you've watched my TEDx talk, you know, I'm on the martial arts path, right? Which is the path of mastery. Okay. And so therefore, looking into your internal experiences, and this is coming around to the answer to your question, looking at your internal experiences and what is your personal truth in reference to what you just experienced? Whether it's a resonant experience, oh, wow, that was amazing, and that really resonated, or a contrasting experience, OMG, that did not resonate at all. And now I know why. Okay. So that process in itself is going to help you build a muscle to be aware of what your internal GPS is saying. So now looking back, using your own history, nobody else's history, your own history, and every moment of the choices and the decisions that you've made that's led you here, let's look back at the origin and the genesis of those decisions. Were there signs? Were there yellow flags? Just like you mentioned in your experience, you said something was off, couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I just felt something was off. Okay, there's your hint. There's your clue right there. So next time when you may come to a choice of decision, right? I think you'll all agree that life is about a series of decisions. Okay, do I choose X or Y? And it's some small decisions like, what do I have for lunch, to big life decisions, right? So in a TEDx talk, I distinguish between instantaneous intuition, which is, when you sense, when you resonate with someone you meet or not, and then there's the intuition that you choose throughout your life, and therefore in conjunction, the compounding decisions that you make become your life. Okay, so now bringing it back, so does that make sense so far?
Yeah, it's a lot of things in one phrase that I kind of want you to repeat, because I honestly want to make a note in here. Is you said about the vehicle, like energy vehicle, and to something about, like, it was so impactful. I was trying to like remember it, but it was kind of,
Yeah.
do you know what I'm telling about? Like,
Yeah. So your business, okay, or your career or your life is the vehicle through which you evolve. Okay, it's the vehicle of your own evolution. And if you context it in that way, and that you, from moment to moment, be the scientist. I work with a lot of scientists, by the way. Be a scientist of your own life, and then question if you don't have if you're not at the point B where you want to be, what is it that's holding you back? And the answers are never out there. It's never out there. This is where we come back to the intuition. We come back to the internal GPS, your genuine path signal, because the outside, okay, so here's what I'm going to say about that. The outside, what's reflected back to you, your experiences of what's the outside world's bringing you, it could be a person you're speaking with, then informs, it becomes data for your internal processes. Okay, so for example, and there's two sides to every coin. Okay, so examine your personal truth is what I would say to that. I'll give you an example. Okay, so I was talking to somebody yesterday at a networking, was it yesterday or Monday, at a networking event, and they said, I said, oh, what is it that you do? And one of the things they share, I do this, that, and the other. And one of the things we do is we help clients promote themselves. Okay, like doing this event, that event, etc. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I've kind of been looking, I've been speaking to people who help promote, because I have my own business, blah blah. James is one of the people I'm speaking with, blah blah blah, all this stuff, right? And the response there was, we help people who are at the top of their field. We only help people at the top of their field. Okay, so my own internal reaction was, oh, okay. Whether it was meant that way or not, whether it was intended that way or not, I felt it. I was like, ouch. First of all, you just met me. How do you know I'm not at the top of my field? Okay, that's number one. But that could be an ego reaction, right? And then I'm like, oh, but wait a minute. Let me sit with this for a while. Is that the reason why I was so triggered? Is it the reason because, there was a shutdown in communication and therefore they weren't open to what I have to say anymore, right? And by the way, if you observe your conversation, do this as a social experiment. 99% of the time, you'll probably recognize people love talking about themselves. And rarely, very rarely, and this is so unfortunate, do they ask questions about the other person, right? I mean, you're laughing because I'm thinking you know what I'm talking about here. In a podcast, obviously, we go back and forth and we talk about ourselves, we ask each, but in a general social conversation, I am generally very disappointed at how uncurious people are about the other person they're speaking with, okay? So anyway, I was sitting with this situation. I was like, is it that? Is it because they didn't ask me anything about myself? Am I disappointed about, well, X, Y, and Z? So in that example, I felt like judged in a way, okay? Whether that did happen or not, I felt that, okay? So I'm sitting with that and I'm like, okay, it's probably a combination of all the above, okay? Let me take a look at this internally within myself. To find out the very next day, okay, I'm listening to a podcast and it's somebody that, let's call it, I grew up with. We started in the industry approximately the same time. I've been in this industry for about like 15 plus years now. And he shared a couple of tidbits because my ears were wide open, that was so wise, okay? And I was like, oh my God, I'm sitting there. I'd been quote unquote discounting this person. They're in the background, they're there in my world, but I haven't really been paying attention to them. I had been doing exactly the same thing to that person. Oh, they know what I know. Yeah. What they know, I know. Yeah. Right. So in other words, that example was just me going inward to examine what was really going on in there and how can I learn from this experience. And in the space of 1 week, I experienced both sides of the same coin, right? So therefore, why I share that with you is that's just one example of how we can use self-inquiry to inform our own wisdom and to learn from it and use the outside as a mirror for our internal experience, okay? Rather than what many people do, for example, and me also at one stage in my life, so I'm not judging here, I'm just sharing, the looking for the answers on the outside, like, looking, and I'm completely guilty of this myself, right? Where is the answer? Where is the answer? Where is that missing piece? Where is that missing piece? And so, going inward is really one of those, what I would call superpowers, if you connect to your intuition, that nobody can take away from you. Just like I say to my clients, right? They go, oh, what's my message? I'm not sure about my message. What is my message? And what I say to them is, your life is the message. How you live your life is the message. It's the embodied message. And we can talk more about that, but increasing your own self-confidence and self-trust, it's all related. And we can unpack that as much as you want in this conversation, because as you can tell, I'm all about it.
Yeah, no, I can tell. And like me too. And like there's for me, one thing that came to mind while you were talking, which is funny enough, I got this from a stand-up comedy thing from somebody that I never seen before, and it was kind of cool. And it was I forgot her name, some May something, and she said, okay, I've been going to therapy, and one of the things that they told me in therapy is to because she said that this person says that they're very emotional, right? So I automatically related because I'm an emotional person, right? And I know that you too, so I know that we relate on that, and that's why we have an extra connection there. So she said, like, look, I'm just like, I feel like I am this, like, I'm like, my glass is completely full onto the top, and just the like little thing that happens, it just makes me like go overboard, right? And it's like, because I'm like just like that, and I'm like, I was hearing that, and then she said about the therapy, how she got recommended to look at every emotion that she gets as a with curiosity, right? And then this very, like, when you said about the what do you call it, inquiries, right? Like the internal inquiries. That's what it got me thinking about, when emotions come to you, when feelings and things come to you, you should always approach it as with curiosity. And this is something that I'm applying to myself. That's what I'm saying, because I listened to it. I was like, no, that's cool, because it's like, okay, like I am feeling anxious, I'm feeling angry or frustrated, or all the feelings that I'm excited or whatever the case may be. Then now I'm getting into the habit, and it's something that I'm developing, right? It's just not something from like 9 end, because sometimes anger and stuff is hard to kind of stop and think. But it's like, okay, I'm feeling this, positive or negative or neutral or whatever. Why, right? Like, why am I feeling like this? Like, interesting, right? Like, and same thing goes with like triggers. And this is something I learned from, I think it was like Shay Rowbottom, that she shares. She's like a LinkedIn influencer, and she says, like, triggers, you should embrace triggers, like whatever triggers you, rather than like go at the person that is telling, like, that triggered you because they say something, and blame them for it. Look inward and think, okay, what does this trigger says about me? Right? Like, what unresolved issue, what unresolved trauma do I have that is causing me to get triggered because of this thing that person says, right? And
Yeah.
that's something that I've been very, very intentional about. It's about asking myself, like, why do I feel like this? Like, what can I do to get out of this? And that is something that you got me thinking, like saying about like that internal inquiries, because I think
Yeah.
that relates to what you're saying. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I absolutely do. Um, there is a label, and I don't know if I heard this from somewhere or I just made it up, but it's name it to claim it. Okay, so you're talking about the emotions, name it to claim it. So, you know, half the time, many of us don't know what we're feeling. Okay, in my TEDx talk, I talk about, and this goes back to my own experience. And when I share this, a lot of people share with me they can relate to it. So, how many of you, for example, your listeners, when you were little, when you were young, okay, and you cried or you expressed a certain emotion, and the adults around you were very empathetic to it. Oh, you crying? Oh, I'm so sorry. What's that? What are you feeling? No. What I was told was, shut up already. You're annoying. Stop crying. Okay. It's not welcomed here. In fact, my mum would say to me, crying is weakness. Okay. Crying is bad luck. She was very superstitious in many ways. And she would say that. Okay. And then I would believe it as a child. Okay. So at some point in my own evolution, just like you said, I very much resonated with what you just shared about being an emotional person. I'm very emotional. Okay. So I like to frame it like it's energy. It's all energy. Okay. If you break down the word emotion is energy in motion. Okay. It's all energy. It's all fluctuating in here. Okay. So your frames of reference is going to be what you make, what kind of meaning interpretation you make from those emotions. It's going to be either based in, it looks like it's from the current moment, what's happening, but really it's historical. Okay. I had heard somewhere, again, I don't know where I heard this from, but what is hysterical is historical. Okay, I learned that from somewhere, and I was like, man, that's so true. What is hysterical is historical. It's not really the thing here that you are reacting to. It's something in childhood, perhaps. Okay, we are like, we're not just one person. It's not just one James, one Mary that shows up. Like, we are an ecosystem of different parts that, depending on what's activated, is the one that leads. So going back to the contrasting experiences, and how do you use it? Okay. So what I'm hearing you say is identifying the emotion, owning the emotion. And I would even go one step further and say, using the emotion to inform you as to what your next steps are, or inform you what your personal truth is, which then it can be used to inform you as to what the next steps are. Okay. So for example, I was speaking at the thought leader stage. Okay, last weekend, I know you and I talked about this. That's how you and I met, actually, through the thought leader network, right? So the thought leader stage in, where was it? Texas, Fort Worth, 2 weeks ago. And I spoke about this in the story. When the video comes out, I'll share it with you for sure. But I was, as you know, I was a computer science major and I was a computer programmer for a while. And then I was a terrible public speaker. And this is what I do now, right? I teach people how to be concise in their public speaking and be confident. But at some point, I knew, I was like, you know what? I want to help more people. And I know that creating my own business is going to be the next step for me. Okay. My internal GPS was saying, yeah, this is the way. But I wasn't yet brave enough to do it. Okay. I was like, oh, but I don't want to, I'm going out on my own. Oh my God. Like, it's so scary. Let me just stay here a bit longer. Okay. I was already doing what I was doing, but I was working for somebody else. Okay. And the leaders I worked for loved what I did. They really valued it. And they said, you know, Mary, keep doing what you're doing. We see it, until I was assigned to work with a new leader. And in my talk, I talk about this. Let's call her Ms. In Charge. Okay. So Ms. In Charge was the complete opposite of all the leaders I had worked for. In one meeting, I said, you know, I really appreciate your support in this. To which she replied, this is your project, not mine. That was my first sign. Things are about to change. Okay. So many more instances like that later. Each time it fueled the fire in my belly. I'm like, my internal GPS was saying, this kind of leadership is not the way. It's so not the way. Okay. And I speak to a lot of people in corporate, and a lot of my clients are from the corporate. So I understand that, like toxic leaders who are, you know, like what I call leading from their wounds rather than their heart. They're leading from their wounds, their egos, right? Keeping you in a little box to, you know, protect their own ego. Long story short, that emotion in me in reaction to this situation with the leader kept arising. And finally, I was like, you know what? What my emotions trying to tell me now is I really need to step out on my own. This leadership thing here is no longer the right thing for me. It's a contrasting experience. Okay. So as scared as I was, because I'd never run my own business before, I had to learn so many skills on the fly, right? As you know, it was at that point, my what I call my fierce spirit came alive and said, you know what, I'm going to lead with my heart. Courage, right? The word courage, if you break up the word courage, it's core and aj, the root meaning a time for the heart. Core means heart, and time aj means time. So it's the time for the heart. Okay, time for the heart. Again, going back to your original question, my heart's leading. I'm going to trust that my head's going to figure it out. I'm going to trust that. I'm going to trust that I'm going to meet the right people. My intuition's going to lead me to work with the right people. And look at this many years later, look where I am. I met you, right? This is what's happening. And so now I have this thriving business, and I've at this point coached and trained over 30,000 people from 30 cities around the world. And so therefore, now going all the way back to your original question, in those moments where it felt like a contrasting experience for me, my emotion of anger and disappointment in such a leadership was what informed me as to what my next steps needs to be. So when I'm scared, I just have to picture this Ms. In Charge. I'm like, you know what? I can freaking do it. You know, I was all these things that I was doing because I was allowing my heart to feel what I felt was right. And sometimes, going back to your original question, your internal GPS, it could feel like, yeah, this is the right direction. It could also be what pisses you off. Okay. So what, may I use those words here?
Yeah.
What makes you mad? Okay. What makes you mad also informs you what is your personal truth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. And right, thanks for giving us like the insights and related to like the clients, and just attaching all this together is really really good. And I just want to say to like thank you for doing this and taking the time to share all your stories. I know that one word that I say almost every podcast is the word of this podcast is perspective. And giving people perspective so they don't feel alone, or they understand certain people in their life because they're emotional, because they came from a background where parents were like, my parents were like that too. My parents were like, you're gonna be an engineer and you're gonna do this, and guess what, I was like, I went to school and went to an engineering and all that, and then I did good on school, but I was missing a lot of like life skills and mindset and all those different things. So even though I have good grades, I was not very good mentally. Like I was like, no, I need to look for something. So that's when I signed up with the Air Force. So I was like, look, I want to go on my own and just raise myself, basically, in a way, right? Like it's like, look, I just want to go and go on my own, learn English, open possibilities, and get different cultures, different stuff. And that's what I did. And best decision that I did, because I learned so much. And not necessarily like in the Air Force, I learned a lot through the journey, but the thing that I've learned the most has been since I became an entrepreneur. Since I
Yeah.
became an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, it's just you are forced to grow. Like, because if you don't self-improve, you cannot business improve. Like, that's just
Right.
not possible for the most part, or not sustainable, at least, right? It might be possible in certain ways, but like it's not sustainable for a long time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that's been, I mean, there's still challenges that like I'm going through mentally and just business wise and stuff. But at the same time, like I feel uh more clear, uh more wise, and like I have better tools, better network, more clarity of what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, how to trust my intuition, how to ask like, why am I feeling like this, right? All those things that I mentioned have been things that are like being like my equipment, my tools, my things to be able to grow as a person, to self improve, so then I can business improve my own business, and then other people's businesses too, right? And that's kind of how it goes, and it has been great. I mean, last couple of months, uh, I have a lot of like mindset shifts in different topics, right? Life, food, uh, uh business, or different areas of the business, right? Because there's like so many different, it's like being in business is like trying to tame this monster with like many heads, right? And you gotta wear all these hats, and you gotta be all these things, right? And even when having a team, I'm still like wearing all these things, and I still like I gotta make sure that I do right by them, and they depend on me, they pay their bills because of the work for my company and stuff, so I have that
Yeah.
responsibility. So those things have been uh, have forced me to level up, have forced me to level up as a human in general, and then being able to be good at business because of it. So like that's something that
Yeah.
I want to like give across to people. It's like, it's entrepreneurship. The best thing of entrepreneurship, in my opinion, is that it forces you to level up, because if you don't, then you just get, dust. Like
Yeah.
you're not gonna be able to succeed. So then you're gonna have to go and find a job
Yeah.
and all that stuff, because then you
Yeah.
won't be able to succeed.
Um, may I piggyback on that?
Yeah.
So I would say yes to all what you said. And here's my biggest takeaway as an entrepreneur is that it, I always say if you live it, you don't need to believe it. Okay. Um, belief is a mental construct, right? It can be changed, and I can't. And I've seen this all the time in myself, but in my clients too. Is these mental constructs that we live in that we relate to as quote unquote true, but until you've tested it and the assumption that it's true then breaks down. So you are the creator of your own reality. Okay, I think that's one thing that it might sound, oh, I've heard this before, but when you've lived it, it really becomes something you don't need to believe, right? Anything we pick up, a pen, a paper, anything, it was once in someone's mind, okay, as a vision, as a concept, until you create it into reality, right? So as an entrepreneur, if you're again, I work with heart-centered entrepreneurs, heart-centered people, business leaders in the corporate world, right? If your heart is in the right place and you are willing to do the work, it's a process, right? And you're willing to learn and you're hungry to learn, and you put yourself and you choose, just like you say, you choose to force yourself to learn, because that's a path that you don't have to do. It's you choose it, right? Then you avail yourself to upgrade your own, to discover, uncover, and develop these new versions of yourself, that when you upgrade in increments, you look back 5 years, 10 years before, you are not even the same person. There are versions of you that you can claim if you choose to walk the path of learning. And to me, that's what's exciting about entrepreneurship. It's like you never stop learning. There's always more to learn. And then what I help people do is just package their story into a concise way. So when they share it, we're like, yeah, I resonate with that person.
Mm. Love it. Love it. Um, again, like thanks for taking the time to give us all this. I'm looking forward to have more conversation with you. I know that we're gonna talk more about
Tip of the
this.
iceberg, tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, like there's so much to unpacking here that maybe we just do another podcast and we just touch different things, because I know, I know that we're gonna collaborate in many ways. It's just a matter of like setting up the strategy, prioritizing, right, and then start getting things out, because I know I can see myself doing a lot of content with you, and I think that that will be very good for the audience, and for us to be able to amplify each other's impact and each other's personalities, life, and everything, right? Like just
Yeah, love it, love it.
so perfect,
Thank you,
perfect.
James. It was a pleasure to be here, and I always feel, when I meet a kindred spirit, so to speak, I can always spot it a mile away.
Nice. And then, so what's the best ways for people to get in touch with you?
So I would say one thing, which is we talked about earlier about listening to the heart voice and not the head voice. One of the biggest obstacles in the head is your inner critic, what I call your inner critic voice, right? So that's a lot of the work that I do with my clients, is to really overcome the inner critic. So I would say go to this website to download my inner critic cheat sheet. So my the link is magnetic podium, or one word, .com/inner critic cheat sheet, all one word, magneticpodium.com/inner critic cheat sheet, and download your cheat sheet from there.
Perfect. Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing that. And if I'll put the links for finding your like LinkedIn and all these different things in the description, so people can go in there and grab the link and just get in contact with you. So thanks again, doing this. It's very cool conversation. I'm looking forward to learn more about heart first, right? And how to lead with the heart, and how to make it not a weakness, but rather a strength for
Yes,
business.
that's
So
right. Yeah. I'm rebranding actually, and my new website and new company is called Heart First Communication.
love it, love it. That's something that I told you, I completely agree with that, and that's something that maybe we throw it in the description, or we add it later. We'll see when this comes out, right? Like we'll time it perfectly to get there, because we're gonna be talking about strategy too later. So we'll make sure that we do this very strategic, and people can get the most amount of value from us, right? Especially
Awesome.
from this new rebranding from you. So thank
Thank you,
you.
James. It's been an honor.
Thank you. So this was Marie and Fu, and this is us signing off.
Thanks for listening to Moments with Fu with your host, Fu. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we will see you on the next episode.